What if I told you that the experiences of your parents or even your grandparents are more than just family stories? What if they're actually written into your very biology? Today, we're diving into the science of how trauma can echo through generations. And it all kicks off with one huge question.
Really think about that. Can the things our parents went through, the stress, the hardship, the trauma, can that actually leave a biological mark on us before we're even born? Is it possible for that stuff to be passed down?
All right, to really get to the bottom of this, we're going to follow the arc of a single human life, starting right from the very beginning. And we've got three brilliant researchers to guide us, whose work is shedding light on exactly how these echoes get transmitted. Our story begins in the first home any of us ever know.
Our first stop is actually before birth, inside the womb. Our guide here is Dr. Catherine Monk, a clinical psychologist at Columbia University who studies this incredibly critical period of development. And she works with a concept that might just change how you think about the start of life. It's called the DOHAD theory, which I know is a mouthful. It stands for Developmental Origins of Health and Disease. But the core idea is pretty mind-blowing. Those first 9 months aren't just a waiting period. They're like a masterclass in survival, where our bodies are actively learning and adapting to the world we're about to enter. As Dr. Monk puts it, the womb is an influential first home. It's not just a physical space, it's an environment that's absolutely buzzing with information. The fetus is learning from what its mother is experiencing. But okay, how? How does that information actually get transmitted? Well, when a mother experiences stress, it's not just a feeling, it's a biological event. Then give it like a series of memos being sent to the fetus. These messages can be delivered through stress hormones like cortisol, changes in the immune system, or even shifts in the mother's gut bacteria. It's a hugely complex and interconnected system.
But, and this is a really big but that Dr. Monk is passionate about, this is not a life sentence. These are small influences, what scientists call small effect sizes, among millions of other things that will shape a person's life. So let's be super clear, it's influence, not destiny. So we've seen how the groundwork might be laid in the womb, but what happens when we fast forward to the teenage years? This is another time of massive change in development in the brain. Our guide for this leg of the journey is Dr. Tiffany Ho, a neuroscientist at UCLA who studies exactly how stress impacts the adolescent brain.
Dr. Ho's research shows a really clear biological chain reaction. It starts with chronic stress. That stress can cause the body to pump out these inflammatory proteins. Now, these proteins can actually sneak past the protective barrier around the brain. Once they're inside, they start messing with the brain's chemistry, which in turn seriously increase a teen's risk for depression. And this isn't just about chemistry. This inflammation can cause actual physical damage to a key part of the brain called the hippocampus. And why is that a big deal? Because the hippocampus is basically the brain's save button for forming new conscious memories.
This gets at the difference between two kinds of memory. There's explicit memory, the what, the facts you can recall, like remembering your piano lessons. And then there's implicit memory, the how, the skills you just know, like how to actually play the piano. The piano example is perfect here. If trauma damages your hippocampus, you might completely forget ever learning to play. But you could still sit down and your hands would know just what to do. That implicit memory is stored differently and it's much tougher. Okay, so we've looked at the biology in the lab, but what does this all look like out in the real world, where biology bumps up against culture and history? For that, we turn to Dr. Susie Dong, a clinical psychologist who has spent decades working with the Vietnamese American community in Southern California.
Dr. Dong has seen how the trauma of war gets passed down, not through genes, but through behavior. She explains that many parents who survived incredible danger can, without even realizing it, recreate that feeling of danger at home. Her words are so direct. They parent by fear. They parent by threats. They parent by punishment. And this happens because the parents' own brains are still wired for survival, stuck in what Dr. Dong calls alert and alarm mode. That constant hypervigilance gets transferred to the kids, creating a home life where there's this constant sense of threat, and children miss out on the emotional safety that's so crucial for development. What's really interesting is how this trauma shows up differently across generations. Dr. Dong notes that the first generation often deals with PTSD and depression directly linked to the war. But for their kids, the second generation, it often appears as high rates of anxiety and depression that stem from parental pressure and growing up in that constant alarm mode. The echo is still there, it just has a different sound. Now, I know this all sounds pretty bleak, but it's not. Because understanding these pathways, the biological, the psychological, the cultural, that is the very first step toward breaking the cycle. This is where the story turns toward hope. I just want you to look at this number for a second. 70%. What in the world could that possibly refer to?
Dr. Dong shares this absolutely staggering statistic. 70% of all physical illnesses have factors that are caused by stress. Wow. That one fact powerfully connects everything we've been talking about, from the womb to the brain to the home. It shows us that breaking the cycle of trauma isn't just a mental health issue. It is a total health issue. So, what can we do? How do we build resilience? Well, our experts lay out a fantastic roadmap. Biologically, Dr. Ho says something as simple as getting high-quality sleep is a huge win. It's naturally anti-inflammatory. Psychologically, Dr. Dong talks about practicing self-kindness and compassion. And on the social front, Dr. Monk emphasizes seeking support and finding safe ways to tell your story. Connection itself is healing. And at the heart of all this advice is this simple, profound wish from Dr. Dong. And while she's speaking about her community, this hope is truly universal. The foundation of resilience is building a kind, healthy relationship with yourself. Look, just understanding how these echoes work is empowering. It allows us to reframe our family's history. It stops being a story of pain and becomes a story of survival. It transforms a narrative of damage into one of incredible strength. And that brings it all back to you. The past helped shape you, no doubt, but it doesn't have to define your future. Knowing your story gives you the power to write the next chapter. The echo of trauma can be powerful, yes, but the voice of understanding, compassion, and your own conscious choices, that can be so much louder. Thanks for joining us.